Hi everyone, it's Plastic EP here from Melbourne, Australia. And just let me tell you, I've hit 900 shows within less than 3 years, and it's my pleasure. Of course, coming in a Hollywood actor that we all love, Scott Schwartz, and I've got Mr. Shampoo with me, Nathan Liu. How are you today, Scott?
Fantastic. How are you?
We're fantastic, and I just want to say, to kick off the show, you're a big Beatles fan.
Yes, I am.
Can I just ask you, what's a couple of your favourite songs?
Oh God, Let It Be is by far my favorite. Get Back is great. The stuff off Sergeant Pepper's is great. Strawberry Fields. Uh, you know, there's so many to choose from. It's funny that you bring this up because I'll tell the viewers. Up until about a minute ago, I knew nothing that he was going to say anything about the Beatles, but I just had a conversation with a friend of mine about this. That their writing, as far as the greatest writing group ever, by far, there's no question. Now, Paul McCartney has a nice voice. It's not Elvis, it's not Sinatra, but it's a nice, calming, distinctive, lovely voice that no matter what mood you're in, you can enjoy. It's like anytime, you know, for even from the stuff past the Beatles, into Wings and just him, he's just got a lovely voice you can enjoy, you know.
You've
So
obviously
I
seen him a few times in concert, have you?
I on video. I've never gone to see him in concert. I was never much of a concert goer. A couple of people because there were other things sort of involved. I took my parents to see Barry Manilow. I took my parents to see Air Supply. I took my parents to see Neil Diamond. Outside of that, I saw a couple of concerts as a kid, Bon Jovi, because I grew up in Jersey, New Jersey. Okay, fine. Liza Minnelli, because I worked with her and then I went to see her. But I've never been a big go into concerts. That just, it's okay.
Now, I've got to
I
ask
missed
you, how did you get
I
into movies?
I was already acting for 5 years. I had done well over 100 commercials and Broadway and off Broadway and voiceovers and all that. And it's just you go out for movies and you get lucky.
Of course, go for it, Mr. Shampoo, and you've got some stuff to show. Do that as well.
Okay, thank you, Plastic. And Scott, welcome to the show. It's great to have you. And Scott, I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to show you my one of my prized possessions that I got from a client of mine named Molly. And do you recognize that, Scott?
For some reason it looks semi-familiar.
Yeah, it's one of the greatest lamps that you'll ever see in your life. Some some great Christmas movie that I've seen. And here's another thing that I got. This is Fragile. Do you see that?
Oh yeah.
Now, this is what I'm going to be to work at Christmas time next year. These tassels actually move. This is great. I love this.
I we did the Family Film Awards this past October we shot, and they were giving A Christmas Story the all-time number one family favorite movie, whatever. And I wore a tie just like that.
It's the most tackiest and the greatest ties, so I love it.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, and here's a movie that I absolutely loved before Christmas Story ever came on. Um, this movie here is just the funniest movie. And I had some questions that I've always wanted to ask you, Scott, if that's okay.
Sure.
Um, you know, as far as the toy goes, I mean, you were on the show, and it was great because both of these shows revolved around kids, and the writers were just fantastic because your part was absolutely believable as Eric Bates, the son of the richest guy in the world, and how was Jackie Gleason and Richard Pryor to you on the show, and Teresa Gamzel and Ned Beatty? Do you remember how they were towards you? Because you were just an equal, but you were a kid. You were a young man.
Not as young as you think. I was 14. So I
Well,
remember all of it.
you hid that well because you know I think
It
you were
was my
both played.
size. It truly was. I mean, I was 4 foot 5 inches tall, and I weighed a whole whopping 55 pounds soaking wet. You know,
So
um,
what was Jackie Gleason like? I mean,
their personalities were much different. Gleason was much more standoffish to everybody, you know, other than me. Uh, you know, I sort of hit him in that sweet spot. You know, there's an old saying that I didn't know because I was too young to know it, that impersonation is the highest form of flattery. Well, I didn't
Right.
know that. All I knew is I love this guy because I love Smokey and the Bandit and I love the
Right.
Honeymooners, but
Me too.
especially Smokey and the Bandit. So I learned all of his shtick and stuff that he did as Buford T. Justice. And one of the first, really the first thing they ever had me do to Gleason for Gleason was my Smokey and the Bandit stuff. And so he hated working with kids and animals. We were told that going in. Don't expect much. He's not an overly nice guy. He can be a jerk and he hates kids and animals. And I hit him in the right spot because he saw that I adored him even at such a young age. And so he just came to me. I had him in, as they say, in the palm of your hand. Well, that's where I had him.
Well, you
Could
can see
not,
it in the movie. You can see it in the movie for
yeah.
sure. You can see
So I
that
mean,
that's
we
real.
got along. We got along great. Now you have to go the other way with Richard Pryor, who this is the early '80s. There's no filter. There's no worry about what you say in front of the kid and this. None of that stuff. You know. So I mean, I got a life education from him
Right.
in topics and subjects that normally you would not really share with a 14-year-old, but it
Right.
was Richard. So I mean, he talked, there was nothing he didn't talk about. you know uh Back then there was no really talk about politics. Nobody did that kind of shit. But he would talk about women, drugs. What do you want to talk about? But we talked about the history of cinema, comedy, things like that. And I did the same thing with Gleason because I loved it. I was a big fan, but I was very studious when it came to old filmmaking. It's like, going in. My director was Richard Donner. The producer is Ray Starks. And one of the first things that when I did my screen test after it, they said, "What are your favorite movies?" Well, I was 13 at the time. Um, and I said, well, let's see. I love Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, Yankee Doodle Dandy, the Jolson Story, the Ten Commandments. I mean, it was all this stuff that they were like, a 13-year-old should not even know what this stuff is, let alone, talk about the Daredevils of the Red Circle and Captain Marvel, the serials from the 40s. So I had educated myself, with my dad and seeing these old things. So they came at me differently. I was not treated like a kid. They treated me like an equal.
Scott, what do you remember about Teresa Ganzel? Because I saw her in a stage play in the '80s, and she's just gorgeous. And she was so funny, and you were so funny in the movie. Especially when she was talking about her boobs, and you said, "Well, what did it look like before?" I mean, I just cracked up. I mean,
Okay,
that
so
was so
you
funny.
bring up the scene. That is
Yes.
the scene in the film that we shot all day. Okay. And so I've got Richard Pryor across from me, Gleason's to my left, Teresa's to my right. All day long, they're making jokes about her boobs, and she's doing the thing with the propellers and this whole shtick. And the line is supposed to be fancy. What did your boobs look like before?
Right.
But I'm not supposed to do it with a smile on my face. I couldn't do it. It was impossible because they're joking the whole day. At one point, I'm talking to Richard. It was right after lunch. And Gleason, across my ears, I can hear him. He goes, honey, your left is more than your right. And she's like, what? Your left is more than your right. And I look and she looked down and her whole left boob was out of the dress.
Oh my God.
And she looked down, she goes, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, and she tucked it away, whatever. I'm laughing the entire day. So when they wanted to do a close-up on me, I couldn't stop laughing. So they did the, side view. So this way, when I say it, you can still see that little bit of a smile on my face, and Richard spits out the water to take away the reaction from me. But of all the things you could bring up, it's that one scene that just to this day it drives me crazy. I could not keep a straight face. But Teresa's wonderful. Her and I still talk. Saw her just a couple months ago. She's wonderful. Just a lovely woman.
Yes,
I
and
just want to say with Richard Donner, he did Gilligan's Island.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
You gotta love that.
He did Twilight Zone. He did Gilligan's Island. He does The Omen, and of course Superman and Lethal Weapons and everything else. And Goonies. He produced. And in the middle of all this, he does this Gleason Pryor picture, The Toy. That people have gone all over the place with now because of social media and the all the what do you want to call it, the temperature of the social things nowadays. And I mean, there are people that have come up to me really pissed off. Oh, you did this movie and Richard Pryor's your slave and all this. Oh, wait.
No.
I'm like, hang on a minute. Now, I figured this out about 3 or 4 years ago after this nonsense started. And it was at a show. I was in New Jersey at a big show. And a rather large gentleman, he was way over 6 feet tall. And he was, African-American, black, whatever you prefer. And he's all pissed off. Man, you did Rich Pryor. Wait a minute. I said, if I can explain to you The Toy and A Christmas Story are the same movie in less than 30 seconds, would you listen? Yeah, go ahead, man. So I said, think about it. They're both relationship movies. The son wants respect and love from the father in each film. It's just how you get there. Christmas Story, it's the BB gun. I want a carbine action 200 shot range mounted air rifle. Okay, fine. In The Toy, it's Richard Pryor. Now, the whole point of it, though, is you get these different things, but at the end, they've both sort of brought the father and the son together, especially in The Toy, because Pryor sort of teaches both the father and the son how to love and appreciate each other and all that. And at the end, it's hugging, kissing, and I love you. I said, now tell me where in that is slavery. Tell me where in that is something bad. What did the kid do? Nothing. He pulled jokes on him, and then he pulled jokes on the kid. So to say it that way, you're trying to, say it's that kind of movie. It's ridiculous.
Scott, I wanted to ask you, in the movie, there were so many wonderful toys, and it was the 80s, and you must have had fun playing with all of them because they sure looked like a lot of fun in that movie. Because
I was a pinball junkie. So actually, there's one of the games right next to the door is called Haunted House, a pinball machine, and they actually put one of those in my hotel room.
Wow!
Because we weren't in a hotel like a Marriott or a Hyatt or a Hilton. No, we were in like a motel, which was like a big square box, and in the middle you had the pool and the volleyball and all that. There was nothing to do. There's no game room. There was nothing. And they knew I loved to play pinball. So it was like, let's keep the kid out of trouble. Give him a pinball machine. And they put a Mattel television in my room and Richard's room as well. So if I wasn't at Richard's room playing Mattel television, we went to the movies. We went to amusement parks. We went play pinball and video games, bumper cars and all that. I was in my room playing that. But yeah, that was actually a barn. Columbia bought a barn in East Baton Rouge, and they soundproofed it. And when the filming was over, they actually sold it to the NBC affiliate in Baton Rouge, and it's their home building now.
Wow. Well, Scott, moving on to the next movie, which was in 1983, they were just 1 year apart, and you're absolutely right where, what you were saying about the father figure and all that. And what I loved in the movie was, I've never heard it anywhere else, but I double dog dare you. That's got to be the greatest line, even in 2023. I thought it was the greatest. And I saw a documentary where they showed where Flick got his tongue stuck on this pole. And people always wondered how they did that. And what they did was, it was actually a vacuum. And it wasn't a frozen pole at all. Is that
no?
Correct,
it was plastic, and they put a hole in it about the size of your pinky nail. And it was just for the tip of the tongue, and there was a suction tube with a little small vacuum motor buried in the snow. So when he turned it on, it was just like you putting your hand on a vacuum cleaner, same suction thing. That was it.
Yeah, but you know what, Scott? We all believed it. We all believed it. Okay,
that's my job.
And they all left you when they went in from recess. They all left you there.
Oh yeah. Well, they
And
left me there, and then I was pulling pranks on most of the guys on the set, including the director Bob Clark. And his payback to me was, first of all, it was between 20 and 24 below zero out there. So it was cold. We were up in Canada, and they're shooting the far shot from the school where you just see me all out there by myself and I'm wailing my arms and all that.
right.
And their joke on me is they got what they needed, but they don't tell me. I don't have an earpiece or anything, but I'm looking dead straight ahead and the guy in the car, and he's going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Then when I was done, he would just say, stop. Okay, fine. And he just kept going, kept going, kept going. And I'm getting tired after like 3 minutes of this, 4 minutes of this. And I'm like, all right, this is enough. And I turned around and I looked up at the window where everybody was with the cameras and everything. They were all gone. They turned the lights off. They broke for lunch and they left my ass out there because that was their joke on me.
And I just love that the bully's name is Scott Farkas, and his little toad is Groover Dill. Is that right?
Grover Dill.
And they say in the movie that because we're kids and even for grown-ups that Farkas had yellow eyes, but nobody has yellow eyes, and we all believe that as well. And in a documentary, it says that that's the great thing about the movie because it was so the imagination was there, and it's my absolute favorite movie. And I've always wanted to ask you these questions, and the writers were absolutely fantastic. I mean, Darren McGavin was always my favorite, and I feel that the actress that played the mother, nobody could have played that mother except for her. And what do you remember about Darren McGavin and the mother?
Well, I didn't have any scenes with Darren McGavin. I talked to him briefly at the read through in the beginning. And then when they were shooting at Higbee's, the store, it was attached to our hotel. That show, we actually stayed at a Marriott. We stayed at a Renaissance back then. Back then it was called Stouffer's Inn, but it was ended up being a Marriott. So I only talked to him briefly, you know. He was a nice man, it was very nice. And Peter's spoken about him many times and said, how good of a guy he was. Melinda actually got to be in the scene with where, Ralphie beats up the bully and the mom comes in and we're standing right behind them. Okay. Melinda was just a darling woman, just a sweetheart, nice, kind, sweet lady. God rest both of them. They're both gone now.
Yes.
We did the new one and Julie Haggerty took over the role. Melinda had retired 5 years ago. And Ralphie had asked her if she wanted to do it, the new Christmas Story film. And she said, oh, no, dear, thank you so much. I'm retired. I'm all done,
I read that.
And they brought in Julie Haggerty, and she was great. I mean, she really was wonderful. It's tough to step into somebody else's shoes and try and do
especially
that kind of a job. So you kind of have to make it your own, but at the same time, she did a wonderful job doing the tribute in her own way to Melinda, the way she did it, And of course, people change over, for almost 39 years, so Melinda's character could have changed a little bit, and it's fine.
Well, Scott, one of my favorite scenes in the movie where Ralphie helps his dad with the flat tire and he uses the fudge word. And then Melinda's on the phone with Flick's mom. And she goes, where did you hear that from?
It's not Flick's mom.
Oh, who? Because you got a licking for something that you didn't
do. It's Schwartz's mom.
Oh.
Schwartz is R.D. Robb and Flick is Scott Schwartz. Trust me, you're not the first person to go, and you just get them mixed up and okay, fine.
You're right.
But it was actually, she's on the phone with Schwartz's mom, but not my mom in the film. We never established a mother for really either one of us. But the funny part is my mom in real life, she's 4'9.5" tall, and she is a bundle. And back then she was pretty boisterous. She had a good voice on her. And if you did something wrong, she would get loud, So when the movie comes out and we went to the theater to see it, Mrs. Schwartz, blah, blah, blah. And
that's right.
My mother thought I had told Bob Clark that my mom screamed and yelled and all of that. Well, my mother was pissed off at me. She was upset. And I'm going, Mom, I had nothing to do. It's not the character. It's the other character. So I actually had to get Bob Clark on the phone to talk to my mom and say, no, it had nothing to do with him. But yeah.
Now,
You
Scott, I got
know,
to ask you about your TV career, right? 21 Jump Street, Rags to Riches. I mean, it's a bit of a change, isn't it, from cinema to TV? But you must love both mediums, yeah?
Both are fine. I mean, there's not much in the way of shooting difference. You still got a crew of 70 or 80 people, and you got a camera, and you got lighting, and you got different angles and different lenses on the cameras and all that stuff. Um, Shooting both, you know, I mean, Jump Street was great because, I mean, it's an early Johnny Depp, and Dustin Nigent and Peter DeLuise. And I turned 19 while we were shooting up in Canada. And in 19, you could drink up there. So, of course, they took me out for my birthday and got me bombed. Um, and Rags to Riches with Joseph Bologna and Tisha Campbell. The guy who played the butler in that was actually in the Broadway show I did, Frankenstein. His name was Douglas Seal.
wow.
So it was here I am, I'm on the set, and there he is. And I'm like, hi, Doug, how are you? He goes, I'm good. How are you? What's your name? And I'm like, really? Doug, this is Scotty. How are you? Yes, we did 3 months of Frankenstein at the Palace Theater. And he was like, oh, wow.
Scott, where in Canada were you in? What part of Canada?
For a Christmas Story? Or Jump Street was done in Vancouver.
Okay.
And the toy was done in Toronto and St. Catharines.
Well, I was born in Victoria and I live in Calgary, Alberta, so I'm a Canadian. So you have to be 19 here, and the beer's a lot more potent, isn't it, Scott?
You know what? I don't think I had a beer that night. They were getting me shots and they were
Oh
getting me
my
all
God.
kinds of other stuff. And yeah, they got me bombed.
You know, one of my favorite lines in the movie from Farkas is, "Listen, jerk, when I tell you to come, you come." I mean, I knew guys like that when we can all relate to this movie because we're boys and we're kids and girls, and the whole movie was just, it's my favorite all-time
But
Christmas movie.
but it's interesting because it's how you react to that. Okay.
Yes, yes,
I'm a little bit older than you are. Okay. I had a bully in school and I had to stand up to him and I had my friends stand up to him. Okay, fine. And of course, Christmas Story Ralphie stands up to the bully. And now we're
yes.
in a different era where if you're bullied, you crawl into a corner and oh, you hurt my
That's
feeling.
right.
No. And
That's
I
right.
try and tell I try and tell the when I do, Q&As and stuff like that and for kids and whatever, stand up for yourself. What is the worst thing that's going to happen?
One of the questions,
Something's going to happen. You're going to get your ass whooped. They're going
yeah,
to whoop ass, and then that's the end of it. Maybe you get suspended from school, then you go home, but you get respect, and you'll be left alone. You know.
Scott, what was it like for you to, you're mere 14 and you're going to school and all these friends knew you before you were, Eric Bates or,
Mm-hmm.
Flick. Were they ever the same to you, or were they just the same guys, or did you feel different, or was it,
Same guys, same girls. I mean, I have friends. Literally, I have one friend, Dave, since kindergarten. My friend Kenny since second grade. Andy, Bobby, Eric. Those guys are seventh grade. My friend Sherry, who I just saw last week in New Jersey, we went out to dinner with her husband Gary. We were in second grade in Hebrew school together. Now, I mean, there were others that I'm not as close with. My other friend Stacy, who I had since middle school, whatever. My friend Scott, he came along in high school. There were schmucks and idiots and people that wouldn't talk to me because I was the movie star. But
well, did you attend any of the premieres of the movies? I mean,
I mean, believe it or not, there was no premiere of the toy. They had a screening in LA that I didn't even get invited to. And
how dare they? How dare they not invite Flick?
No, Eric Bates, whatever.
Eric Bates, sorry.
And there was no premiere for Christmas Story because it barely made it into the theaters because MGM had no faith in it. They didn't want to put any money behind it. And the other film I did at the time, KIDCO, the only time it was ever shown on the big screen was in Mobile and Birmingham, Alabama. They had two preview screenings, and they wanted to see, what people thought and all that. But it kind of opened up the same weekend Now back then there were no multiplexes. It was a twoplex, So you got theater one with this movie that nobody's ever heard of, with this kid that nobody's ever heard of called KIDCO. And theater two was this small movie called Splash with Tom Hanks and
Yep,
Daryl
and
Hannah.
Daryl
Now,
Hannah.
what movie are people going to see?
Splash.
They're
Right.
going to see Splash, of course. So, I
Right.
mean, afterwards, they're like, listen, we would love to tell you that it was great, but we really didn't have that many people came to the movie, so we're just going to put it on video. I'm like, no shit, man. Come on.
Yeah,
Well,
but video was big, too. The VHS videos, people have still got them and still
Yep.
got their players, believe it or not. I got a whole cupboard full of VHS.
Oh, I got some VHSs still. Oh, yeah.
well,
I got to ask
Scott,
you, have you had
Go
any
ahead.
inkling to either write a book or try and organize your own movie, direct a movie? I mean, you must have so many ideas in your head about movies.
The book is written already. It's I had a publisher, and we were getting ready to start the machine rolling, and COVID showed up 3 years ago.
Oh, no.
So I actually I hung in there with that publisher for almost 2 years, and finally I said, "Listen, what's going on here? We got to get going." And they said, "We're basically bankrupt at this point. What are you going to do? Go fight them?"
No, you're going to look for another publisher?
Well, I've already that ball's already rolling down the hill.
Can you tell us the name of the book, or you can't?
It's called Whatever Happened to Me.
Okay. Sounds very interesting.
It's all of it. It's the before the movies, during the movies, after the movies, the other things I did, different industries I was a part of, being a part of WWF back in 85 and 86, doing other stuff in the 80s, 90s, zeros, whatever. But always staying in and around the film industry, shooting little things here and there, and doing stuff to pay the bills. I've never been a drug addict, never an alcoholic, I've never been to rehab, never had a DUI, none of that crap. I had the best teacher. I say I cheated because I had the best teacher. I had Richard Pryor. From the day I met him until the day he couldn't speak anymore, he was my muse, he was my mentor. Any question I had, I could ask anything, So the amount of information he gave me definitely gave me a leg up on the education and life experiences than most everybody else gets.
Well, you could tell the chemistry between you two on the toy. There's no doubt about that. We scared the hell out of them with those firecrackers, Scott.
Yeah, well, I didn't even throw them. That was a special effects guy. I didn't even throw them. But, so I'm in Richard Donner's office. I had already gotten the movie, and Richard comes in. I was going to do my wardrobe fitting, and I'm playing the pinball machine, and Richard Donner says, "Scotty, you got to stop playing. There's somebody here to see you." And I turn to my right, and there's Richard Pryor. And how you doing, blah, and we started chit-chatting. And I knew who he was. I love Stir Crazy and Silver Streak and Bingo Long, and okay. And then of course the concert movie, Live in Concert, okay. And it's interesting that two people from different parts of society. I was a lower middle class Jewish kid. My dad was a window cleaner. My mom managed a 7-Eleven. He grew up in a whorehouse in Peoria, Illinois. But where was the common ground? Believe it or not, he says to me, it was like a couple of days after we had gotten down to Louisiana. He's like, there's this old Western star, and you're not going to know who he is, but I love the old Westerns. We talked about Gene Autry and Roy Rogers and all that crap. And he says, there was a guy named Lash LaRue. And I said, the master of the bullwhip. Of course I know who that is. Well, how do I know who that is when that's who he loves? My dad had like 30 Lash LaRue Westerns on VHS. Pick up phone. Hey, Dad, I need copies now. Go make them. So Dad set up 2 VCRs, made the copies, sent them down to me. I go, Richard, I have a gift for you, because we all had VCRs. There's no DVDs back then. We had VCR. I said, here's some stuff for you to watch. I think you'll enjoy this. He opens up the box and he sees the titles. And he goes, these are Lash LaRue movies. I said, yeah, they're all that. I know you love them. Enjoy. You'll have them. You feel at home, whatever. Well, that was it. Hey, Scotty, you got it. What are you doing? Nothing. I'm sitting in the room. All right, come on over. and we would watch Alash LaRue, and we would play, Mattel and television, and we would talk.
Did you beat Richard on
Oh
Intellivision?
yeah, oh sure, many times. He beat me sometimes. I beat him sometimes. Whatever.
Those are great stories, Scott. Like, thanks for telling them and coming on the show. That is an amazing story. I love it.
Yeah. We went to see Poltergeist in the
Oh,
movie
wow.
theaters. Okay, so if you remember the opening of the film, it's the Star Spangled Banner. The screen goes, bad or whatever. The minute it started, Richard stood up in his chair and he put his hand over his heart. And people are like, oh my God, it's Richard Pryor. It's Richard Pryor. He's like, listen, gang, enjoy the movie. If you want an autograph or something later, I'll stay after the movie. Just stay in your seats. Enjoy the movie. It's okay. And afterwards, we went out and they had the little kiosk back then with the 110 cameras. People were running over there, getting in and taking a picture with Richard and trying to find their ticket from the movie with an autograph on it. I never asked him for that. I should have, but it's okay. But uh, that's the kind of guy he was. There were two Richards before he burned himself up and the after, and I got the after,
Right.
which was, maybe not as wild and crazy and funny. Maybe, I don't know if funny is the right word. Wild and crazy is the first guy, but man, he was my muse, my everything, my educator. He became my life teacher. He really did, you know.
Now I've got to ask
That's
you,
great.
with your career, you must have come across a lot of stars. Who are your favorite stars, like that you've met during your career?
Oh God. Ron Howard's wonderful. Henry Winkler's great. Um, oh man, that's Michael Parade from Eddie and the Cruise. I gotta look at my wall because all their pictures are on my wall. I'm going, okay, Charlton Heston was cool. Leslie Nielsen was great. John Saxon from Enter the Dragon. Jim Kelly was
Yeah.
great. Most it's a weird thing. If you come up and you're Bob, who's Bob? Okay. It's another thing when you come up, how you doing? This is who I am. And oh my God, I've been watching you for 20 years. My kids love you. Okay, fine. Um, Richard took me to Paramount one day. Just called me up. I want to go somewhere. Come on, come over to my house. I live 15 minutes. I went over, whatever. He drives me down to Paramount. We go on the lot. I'm kind of making this faster for you guys. And every studio, a soundstage, there's always the sign next to the door that has the title of the movie. And the title of the movie said Coming to America.
Oh, cool.
And I said, what's this? Oh, I want to bring you meet some of my friends. I want to come say hi. So we walk in, and 10 feet in front of me is James Earl Jones.
Wow.
And Richard knew I'm a Star Wars fanatic, love Darth Vader, number one, the whole thing. And here's James Earl Jones
Wow.
standing in front of him. Oh my God. You know. And again, he went over and said hi and they hug and whatever. And he goes, James, this is my boy. This is my brother Scotty. He did the toy with me. It's different when you get introduced that way. This is Richard, you know. So I mean, meeting Eddie Murphy and Arsenio, and I still talk to John Amos once in a while, and we're still friends. And it's amazing the amount of people that I've met who open their arms to me because they loved Richard and they want to hear the stories and they've heard me somewhere else or whatever it is. There's very few that haven't been nice. Oh God, I mean, Tony Curtis was hysterical because, of course, his real name is Bernard Schwartz.
Oh, really?
So, yes, his real name is Bernie Schwartz. So I walked up to him. I said, Uncle Bernie, how are you? He goes, well, what Schwartz are you? Because he knew what I meant. Um, but I mean, I met a lot of athletes, and most people have been really, really cool. Tom Hanks was funny. I've never met him, but we have a mutual friend, and he's a Christmas Story guy. Who knew? And I got a Forrest Gump poster that I wanted him to sign for me, and so I gave it to my friend. And the next day, he calls me on the phone. He's, oh, good, you picked up. Hang on a minute. I wait 5 seconds. Scotty, how are you? Tom Hanks. Oh, how are you? Hey, listen, your last name, Schwartz? Yeah. Okay, thanks. Click. And he hangs up the phone on me. That was it. And of course, the next day, my buddy called me up and he signed my Forrest Gump to Scotty Schwartz. You're a legend, Tom Hanks.
Wow.
Unbelievable. Now, Scotty, I want to thank you so much for being on the show and being with us. And I got to tell you, you've got a big fan base here in Australia because they really love your movies. I want you to know that.
I got to get down there. That Supernova show that's in Perth and Melbourne. You know, and I mean, I have people that I know just, all over the place. My friend Mary, who lives in Australia. Hopefully, if she sees this, hi Mary, I love you. You're my sweetie. She's my friend. Um, it just the world is a small place, so hopefully I will get down there at some point. It'd be fun.
Yeah, you got to come. And as I said, thank you all for watching the Plastic EP show with Nathan Liu and Scott Schwartz. And let me tell you, it was such a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks,
You're
Scott.
very welcome. This was great. Peace and love, everybody. And, stay well, have a joke, a smile, and a song every day, and be happy.
Perfect.